Okay, we're taking bets. Oh, hang on. I think my audio level is way too high. I'm just going to turn it down a little bit. Hopefully that will be better. It might be because I've got this thing over the front of my face though. Yeah, okay. Yes. It's still there. You win a tent, pre-delivered. Yes. Good morning, everybody. I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to Aboriginal elders and peoples from other communities who may be taking part in this live stream today. So, it looks like I'm live. It looks like I have audio level. Hopefully it's all working. This is on my Mac Mini with the ATEM and the external laptop feeding it with OBS, etc. It's like the whole shebang, the setup that I had at home. And I just got it working 1 minute before the live stream. Good, all just fine. And the other thing is I'm on Ethernet now, not on Wi-Fi. So hopefully we won't have those problems that we were having previously. Yes, Austin, it does. It means I'm no longer on Wi-Fi. Hopefully life will be good. Life will be a dream. All just fine, thanks. So, good morning, everybody. I need to, a last minute thing was, because I've transplanted everything over here, different devices have changed their IP addresses. And so things like using Companion from my old MacBook to control the ATEM no longer connected. And the MacBook was on a fixed IP range, so I had to change that to the HTTP. Then I had to change the configuration on the ATEM, and it couldn't connect to OBS, all sorts of things. So it was a bit of a rush. Okay, live chat. All right, time to open the chat and pop in. Okay, no, I do not want top chat. I want live chat. We always want live chat. I've just got to rearrange myself. Oh, but it also means, if everything is working properly, that we can do things like, I can do screen sharing again, which is nice. I've got to fix the centering on that little picture-in-picture window. I can do the microscope. I don't have the overhead camera set up yet at my workbench, but I've got the... Yeah, that will be done probably within the next couple of days. Dodgy wandered off to get breakfast. Yeah. Henrik said, when am I going to return my home lab? No, several times I have been intending to go out and take a photo of what my home lab currently looks like as a demonstration of the disaster area. Because what I've been doing is pulling everything out of there. It's the classic situation. Like anyone that's, well, maybe it's not. If you're moving house, it's not quite the same. If you're moving an office or if you're moving a workshop, what you tend to do is you can't move everything at once. So there tend to be sort of central pieces that get moved and that leave big holes, and then everything holes, and then everything gets pulled out, and you end up with just cables lying around the place and layers of dust on surfaces that haven't been exposed for years, and things piled up just to get them out of the way. It is it is mind-boggling what my home lab looks like at the moment. Keith said, looks like I've got the heating working. Kind of. I've got a radiator down behind me. I could probably move it a bit closer, actually. It's not too cold in here today. So yesterday, Chris came over to visit. I've been really wanting him to come over and see the factory, because a lot of what I've been doing here has been inspired by the work that I've been doing with him over the years, and conversations that I've had with him about dreams for what sort of services and things we could provide here. But the weather has been really bad, and he has a lot of trouble getting out when it's cold, because even with a hand heater and like a cover over his hand, he loses dexterity, and he I've talked about this before, but for those of you who haven't heard it, my friend Chris has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which means that he cannot control the muscles in his... How do I explain this in a very brief way? Basically, his body doesn't respond, and the result is that over the years, some of his muscles have atrophied. His total movement is about 10 millimeters in his right fingertips at the moment, and he's on a ventilator. But one of the side effects of this is that he can't generate body heat, because the way we generate body heat typically is mainly through muscular activity. And because his muscle fibers aren't firing, it means that he doesn't generate heat. So he gets really, really cold really quickly, and he needs to be, actively heated. And so getting him out on a cold, windy day like yesterday is, it's a big deal for him. Anyway, the point of that is he came over here yesterday and had a look around and had a look at the new pick and place machines and checked out the lab. And so yesterday I had the big gas heater. We've got like a big radiator in the main factory area. I had that running for most of the day to, really bring the air temperature up in the factory. I had the radiator here running, trying to get the temperature up. And, Austin says, should look at carbon heat tape. It's easy to work with and very effective for making heated items. I've never heard of carbon heat tape. Now that you've said that, like when you put those three words together, carbon heat tape, I can kind of imagine what it is, but I've never actually heard of that. I guess it would be kind of like a resistive heating element. So you run some power through it and it gets warm. Okay, I am curious now. I am going to go look for, what was it called? Carbon heat tape. And let's see what we can find. Carbon fiber flex tape. This is just like the first thing that came up. 27 bucks for a 1 meter by 44 millimeter DIY heated vest, gloves, insoles, jacket. Interesting. Very interesting. That's not something... Google carbon heated clothing. You find lots of instructables about. Now, one of the complications with Chris is that he can't have anything, he can't wear gloves because he only barely has the strength to move his fingers when they are unobstructed, and he doesn't have the strength to push against the resistance of gloves. And so what we have, and that can include things like fingerless gloves, because fingerless gloves put pressure against your palm and basically constrict your hand, so it means that he doesn't have enough movement in his hand. So what we would need is something that warms the hand sort of indirectly without applying any pressure to it. What am I scrolling down through here? Heated clothing. Yeah, I want to find out. I'm going to do exactly what this thing is telling me. I'm going to Google for carbon heated clothing instructables. Look at this. By Shenzhen. Really? The city is posting. Motorcycles. Yeah, this is interesting. Pattern made from some factory vest. 6 meters of carbon heating flex tape. By touch, carbon is a little bit like a loose weave silk. I think I need to make something like this for myself as well, so I can work in the factory and stay warm. I know there are things like this for people like construction workers and road crews, because they're often out for a long time. If you go down to your local like work safety place, the places that sell high vis and traffic cones and signage and all of those sorts of things, you can typically buy things like jackets with heaters in them, and often they run off battery packs, sometimes the same battery pack as things like cordless drills. So you can get like a Makita jacket that takes a Makita drill battery and keeps it warm. Yeah, carbonheater.us, Austin said, which is that link. It was the link right here, carbonheater.us. I hope that doesn't mean it's a... Look at this 90s era site. That's awesome. It's like a... we've got frames. Check this out. We've got frames. I love it. I didn't think frames even worked anymore in modern browsers. I thought Chrome had deprecated frames. Well, not just deprecated it, but like removed it. So, carbon for free. Carbon based and carbon heated because we're human. Interesting. Pioneer payment. Amazon fulfills. Okay, so where do we buy? About carbon tape and rope. Carbon fiber rope. All right. Interesting. But before I get into that, let's do a quick rollback. I'm just going to do a quick, hey, super dodgy. So, firstly, good morning to everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm not going to go through and name a whole bunch of people. I'm way behind in the chat, and I am 12 minutes into a live stream. Richard says we can start because you're here. Very good. That shows how far back in the chat I am. Johnny said, unless he got himself sideburns. I could do a variation on this, I suppose. All right. Okay. Henrik said, looks like you're kind of happy I'm not. What's going on, Henrik? I hope you're okay. I'm just going to do a quick scan down. Henrik, I broke the only shellac player, and I don't know how to fix it or find new parts. A shellac player? Because it's old Russian stuff. Sorry, I'm skipping everybody else's comments right now. I'm just scanning down looking for Henrik's comments. Has Henrik said anything else? It didn't work. I tried to fix it, got a preamp, and all I got was garbage. Opened the sound head, and then it broke, and I don't know what to do now. I have no idea what that device is. It sounds like a record player or something. The only shellac player. I am really curious about this now because it sounds like interesting technology. When I search for that, all I get is lots of matches on football players and things. Shellac. Oh, okay. So, shellac player. Like this. How to play 78 RPM. So, shellac records. Oh, okay. I don't know anything about those other than like basic principles of how record players work. I assume it works kind of like a very early record player with a tip and passive amplification. Interesting. Debut carbon esprit. Well, Henrik, it sucks that it broke. I'm really sorry to hear that. It sounds like an interesting project, trying to get something like that going. Yeah, if you've got more information about what that particular device is that you've got, stick it in the chat. Like if you've got a link to the particular thing. So, scrolling back, what have we got? Okay, Austin. So, Austin is also in the process of setting up a new workshop. So, and Austin said, I've been feeling the hassle of moving things, trying to put parts in place and trying to stay on top of projects and get things done. Yeah, it's a balancing act. One of the things that I've had trouble with is the mental block of having been working in one particular workshop for so many years. Setting up a workshop is very much an iterative process, and things get adjusted as you go. So you discover that there is a certain bit of test equipment that you need close to you all the time, or you figure out a place to store test leads, and so what is embodied in a typical workshop, once it's been in use for a long time, is years and years of little tweaks and adjustments to make it fit exactly the way you want, and to have muscle memory so that you can just reach for things and you know where they are. But part of the process of that is that as you're making those adjustments, you can't really make fundamental underlying changes to overall things. Doing that is a much bigger job. And I did that many years ago when I flipped my workshop layout. I had all of my tools and workbench under a window and with my computer to the right, and I flipped it. So I had the workbench on a blank wall with my computer to the left, which stayed in the same place. And what that meant was that I went from having all of my test gear like oscilloscope, etc., sitting directly on the bench. Well, initially when I flipped it, I still had it on the bench. And then I moved it up onto a shelf so that the entire bench was clear to the wall underneath the test gear. And sometimes you can make major rearrangements like that, but a lot of the time you're kind of constrained by the large fixed things and about decisions that you make. So if you look over my shoulder, there, you can see those shelves. Those shelves are on a different wall. That's the back workbench, or the side workbench. That's not my primary new workbench, which is just to my right. But that shelf spacing exactly matches, and there's another shelf that hasn't been installed yet that would go about there. That shelf spacing exactly matches the spacing on my main workbench where my test gear and everything is. And it is spaced so that my two stacked lab power supplies beside my oscilloscope and a couple of other things all fit really nicely in that gap. So if you look at that gap right there, it's 220 millimeters or something. That is just the right space for like a Rigol oscilloscope and a couple of lab power supplies and other stuff that goes into that space. But once I've started loading everything up and running all of the cabling through it, doing something like moving those brackets by one position is a huge exercise. And I'd have to strip everything off the shelves, pull the cabling out, unscrew the screws that go through the brackets into the shelf, take the shelf out, move the brackets, and then just reverse the whole process. And it has ripple-on effects. For example, if cables have been run power cables have been run to the back of an oscilloscope, and it goes through and then down to under the bench and plugged into a power point, those cables could be coiled to a certain length and fixed with cable ties. So then you've got to cut all the cable ties just to adjust your power lead by like 30 millimeters. So as I've been going through the process of setting up the new lab, I've been kind of scaring myself into not making decisions, might be the way to describe it. I don't know. I've been having this decision paralysis, or it's a feeling like I have to get it right, because if I don't, I'm going to be paying for it for the next 10 years or whatever, however long I have that particular bench set up. This right now is the opportunity to make sure that the spacing on everything is perfect. Things are exactly where I want them to be. So I have been rearranging things. This is one of the things, I don't have a way to do a portable camera right now on the live stream. By next week I should. But right now I've just got the basics set up. So I've got front camera, screen sharing, and whatever I can bring in from OBS, and that's about it. But I wish I could show you bench setup at the moment. The closest I could do is take some photos and like stick the photos on my screen and share the screen, which may be worth doing. Anyway, I've been taking the opportunity to rearrange the horizontal spacing, because I also want to make sure that things like the microscope mount is in a position where it's close enough that I can drag the microscope into the area where I want to work, but it's far enough away that when I push the microscope out of the way, it clears everything without the swing arm going back too much and knocking other stuff that needs to be sitting on the bench behind it. Anyway, all of this is to say, I can't make a decision. I've been kind of just going ahead with this feeling in my stomach that I'm stuffing this up. I actually don't think I am stuffing it up. I think what I've got now, or what I'm going to come up with now, is even better than what I had in the old setup, because I have made some of these adjustments. I'm moving little things like I'm moving the multimeter from the right-hand side to the left-hand side of the oscilloscope, and the multimeter leads will be able to loop around and hang on the left side of the bench. The more I think about this, the more I need to to explain what's going on. I'm going to take a photo. So I'm going to step back from here a little bit. Yes, and then I'm going to take another photo that is more straight on, because I'm going to show you what I'm going to change. I'll just move the microscope a bit. Okay, so how am I going to do this? Sync with Dropbox, and then I should be able to bring them up on my computer and show them to you. Where am I going? Yes, Dropbox. Camera uploads. And is this the one? No, it's not. Dropbox will take a little while to do its sync thing. So, in the meantime, what is going on in the chat? Yeah, Dodgy says, isn't it a pity we can't just plug ourselves into 240 volts to get our bodies up to temp? Yeah, that would be nice if we had some kind of an internal heating mechanism. Oh, going back to Henrik's comments about the shellac player. Yeah, Johnny said Russian parts, good luck with that. Yeah, so the shellac player is an old Russian device. It could be interesting trying to get those at the moment. Oh, Harry P. Okay, here's a good question that is actually related to home automation. And it's one that I'd appreciate some other opinions on. Harry P says, good morning, about to start a new home build in Australia. Would you recommend smart bulbs or Wi-Fi smart switches? Would you have any suggestions? Okay, so what I would recommend. Okay, there are a couple of different things here. I don't know why my, hang on, I'm going to kill Dropbox because it doesn't look like it's syncing, and restart it. Hopefully force it to sync. Okay. Other opinions, please. Feel free to jump in. Oh, so Peter just paid for anonymity. Yeah, Peter, we can't see you. You're not here. Really not. Oh, and Leon said, Leon, hey, g'day. Currently in the process of building out home automation at my girlfriend's place. Yes. Sorry, I'm distracted because it looks like Henrik is trying to post a link and Johnny is saying that you can't post links. Yeah, I think it can be done though if a moderator approves it. So Henrik, if you post a link in the chat, it'll probably say held for approval or something, and then one of us can approve it. I think maybe it doesn't let you post at all. I'm not sure. Yeah. Nope. Dropbox just does not want to sync those photos that I just took, which is very weird. I don't get it. Because they're definitely on my phone. But it will not sync. Alright, I will just leave it open and we'll see if it ever catches up. Yeah, alright. So, that question about doing a new home build and recommendation on stuff. That's an important one. We'll get to that in just a moment, but I just wanted to follow up a couple of other comments. So James says, I say, stop kidding yourself and accept the fact that stuff will move later on and you just get things going. Yeah, that's how I'm convincing myself to make forward progress. It's how I ended up beginning the move last weekend as well. I'd been putting off the idea of moving my computer here because I wanted to make sure that the underlying room was 100% finished first. I currently don't have a door. The front door still needs painting and the curtains need replacing. I didn't even have power boards. I was missing lots and lots of stuff. I don't have the network set up properly yet. So I didn't have Ethernet switches plugged in. I had them sitting here, but I didn't have anything plugged in. And I resigned myself to just do it. Just move the computer here, have a setup that I can use as a little bootstrapping starting point, and then work out from there. Yeah. Data power rails at the shelf level. Okay, so Ian Scott Johnson, this is about power stuff. Data power rails at the shelf level works great for me. No cables running down to my bench. Yeah, I've got... so, one of the interesting things about this, in fact, I'm going to bring this up. I will get back to this question about recommendations for a home automation system at the moment. But first, let's have a look at what I want to look at. I want to look at that. So what I've been doing with the power setup here is I had my electrician come in and put in a couple of extra power points. So I've got power points above bench level and below bench level. And then with those Z-Wave power boards that I've got, I've mounted DIN rail under the bench, like 2 meter lengths? Yeah, I think 2 meter lengths of DIN rail under the bench. And then I've attached the Z-Wave power boards to them. And the idea is that absolutely nothing in this lab will be plugged directly into a regular power point. It'll all go through the Z-Wave power boards, which means that I get individual control per socket and individual power monitoring per socket. So every single device is plugged into something. So in this spreadsheet, you can see the different devices. In fact, let's, where is this? View. I'm going to zoom. Let's go to 200%. So I've just been naming these things. It's very unimaginative. Greenwave power node 6. So it's a 6-port power node. So if you look at this, for example, Greenwave power node 6, number 3. It's got 6 outlets. This is what's plugged into it. So hot air oscilloscope, iShould number 1, which is my first soldering iron, the preheater, and power supply 2. And what we can do is, so this is just as an example. Oscilloscope, let's turn on the oscilloscope. So we've got power node 6-3 and it's channel 2. And if I come to the Z-Wave to MQTT thing here, and I go to, where were we? This is not how I'd normally do it. I'm just doing this to show you like the behind the scenes mechanism. And you can see that I've got Greenwave power node 6, number 3. Its location is under bench 1. It is connected. And if I spin that down, I can see configuration stuff. I can see power metering. So if we go down to power metering, you can see that there is a little bit of power being pulled by a couple of things that are in standby mode here and turned on. And if we go to binary switch, you can see that those things are turned off, except that one's turned on. Now what was I looking for? Which channel? Oscilloscope is on channel 2. Okay, so if we go to channel 2 and turn it on, that has now just turned on my oscilloscope. And if we now go back to the power monitoring, you can see that the oscilloscope power has just gone up to 1.8 watts. So that is the oscilloscope in standby mode. It's not like the power button is not turned on. It's just power to the oscilloscope has now been turned on. So if I press the button, the scope is now starting. And you can see that the power has just jumped up to 9 watts, and it'll probably go up a little bit more as it goes through, there we go, as it goes through its boot process. So we can see that, and you can hear it beeping So the oscilloscope is plugged into that power socket, and we can measure how much power that device is using. So that was just one example. The idea is that every single thing, like my ATEM, my speakers, each of the monitors, the computer, soldering irons, power supplies, the 3D printer, absolutely every single thing in this lab is controlled through these smart power boards, so that they can be individually controlled and power monitored, so I can see exactly what's going on. So I can now turn off my oscilloscope by turning off that channel, and the oscilloscope just turned itself off and power consumption dropped to 0. Anyway, this interface that you see here is it is Z-Wave.js to MQTT, and it's like a management thing where you can include nodes, you can configure them, firmware updates, all that sort of thing, and it passes events through to MQTT. So if so the way I actually control this is not through this interface. This is just like a setup management interface. I've got it all running through Node Red, and then, for example, on my phone I can pull up the ATEM Mini and click a thing on my phone and I can turn it on and off. And you can see what's happening with this one is when if I turn on or off the monitor and speakers for my computer, it's driving 3 different sockets. So what it does is it turns on the 2 monitors and the speakers just by clicking the one thing, and I can monitor the power being used by them individually. In fact, let's have a look at that. Monitor 1 is this ridiculous 49-inch ultra wide, so that's 6.4 and it's channel 4. So 6.4, that one under desk 1, and it is channel 4 power meter. So my main monitor is taking 50.6 watts, and where is the second monitor? It is on, monitor 2 is on 6.5 channel 1. Get rid of that, close up 6.4, where is 6.5 channel 1 power meter? So 16 watts being used by the second monitor, which is the little one up, which is the one that I'm sharing right now. I've got the main monitor, and then I've got a little full HD monitor, little, it's like 23 inch, I think, 24 inch, maybe 25, I don't know. I can't judge the size. Anyway, I've got that monitor separately, and that's the one that's being screen shared right now, and that's the one that is currently pulling 15.7 watts. Anyway, point of all of this, yes, controlled and metered power sockets everywhere. Many, many, many of them. What was I doing? Yeah, so there was the question. Oh, Henry's link. Okay, Johnny, thank you very much for including that link. I'm going to hit that. This is the link to the device that Henrik has been working on. Let's check this out. It's I think it's really cool the way so much older electrical equipment basically looks like furniture. And you see it in things like old sewing machines as well, like old Singer sewing machines with the heavy wrought iron base, and they would descend into the base and the cover would come over them, so it was like a little side table. I really like that sort of thing. It's pretty cool, having stuff concealed. So this is the shellac player that Henry is trying to get working. It's such a pity that it's that it seems to be broken, Henrik. Yeah, that's cool. Cool bit of retro tech. Oh, and Harry P said, any recommendations for switches? All right, so I think we've got to get back to the question. the question. So I am, despite what I was saying before, I am starting to get cold in here. Part of the reason I'm just wearing a t-shirt is that I was rushing around moving stuff right before the stream started. So I'm going to make life nicer for myself by, come on, grabbing this nasty old radiator and bringing it over closer. Come on. I've got to get something like reverse cycle air conditioning in here so that I can be nice and warm. So now, okay. The question. There is some really cool information. I posted about this on Twitter, and I've since had it confirmed by Preslava at Altico. So what I am referring to is Australian electrical certification. Check this out. This makes me very, very happy. Where is the search? Search. Somewhere in here. Certificate holder. Where's the thing? I'm probably no, that's just the requirements. No, it's the same thing. Somewhere in here. All right. Let's just do. I don't think this is the right thing to be doing. No. Where did I find it? I know. If I look in maybe Superhouses. No, that's not me. Superhouse TV it is. Somewhere back here I did post about it. Nope, it must have been in my personal feed. Anyway, the point of what I'm going a long way around here. The point of what I'm trying to get at is that the Shelly Pro 4PM is now Australian certified. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, I didn't even put a link to the certification in it. Anyway, this device, which I showed in this video, I'm just going to drop this in here. This is all coming back to that question about advice for setting up a home automation system on a new build. Oh, there it is. Okay, I did put the link in there. So this device, boink, Shelly Pro 4PM, received its certification. Where is there a date? Oh, it's up here. Yes, so it received its certification 31st of May, and this is really, really cool news. So for those of you who haven't seen this, look at the Shelly Pro 4PM. It is a DIN rail mounted, hang on, oh yeah, there it is. It's a DIN rail mounted 4-channel output controller with power monitoring. It's not a dimmer, it's only a relay. It's only like 4 relays, 4 channels of relay, but for lighting control and general load control, this is really, really cool. And my plan is to put a bunch of these inside my switchboards at home, probably to replace the DIN rail mounted relays that I have in there now. And when I was, basically this fulfills all of the requirements that I have had in my head for a star topology switchboard based home automation control system. The thing that it doesn't have is dimming. So if dimming is an issue, there are other ways to achieve that. But what it does is, I've got to try to sit over here. What it does is give you Ethernet control or Wi-Fi control. The thing is that for home automation, I try to avoid radio if possible, use it where it's useful. And yes, I know this whole place is now running off of Z-Wave, so I'm kind of going against that, but oh well, do as I say, not as I do. So for my house, it is wired in a star topology with all of the loads wired back to the switchboard. One of the things I like about that is it gives flexibility for future upgrades without having to do anything distributed through the house. Now, if you have a home automation system where you have a traditional wiring scheme where power goes out to a light switch and then from the switch to the load, if you want to change the technology that you're using, you typically have to do that in many, many different places. Whereas if you have every light wired back to the switchboard directly with no switch in the middle, just load on the end of a long wire, it means that your power control of all of those devices are all in one place. And if you want to change the technology that you're using, like go from C-bus to like Shelly's or vice versa or whatever, the electrician can do everything in one place, and it's really convenient and easy. So the thing that I like about these particular devices is that they do power monitoring, which is something that I've been wanting to do. At the moment I have relays and I can control every individual load in my house, but I can't tell how much power each individual thing is using without using some kind of like profiler on the overall energy consumption. And I really want to be able to measure everything individually. And it uses cabled control, so Ethernet to control them. It gives you the option of Ethernet at least. You can use Wi-Fi if you really want to. But in this sort of situation, it makes sense because you've got to use Ethernet because you've got a bunch of devices all inside a metal box, typically metal. In my case, it's metal. In a lot of small domestic switchboards, it's a plastic enclosure. But industrial or automation switchboards are typically metal, which means you have Wi-Fi signal issues. But if you've got all of these devices basically in a row plugged into a DIN rail, you get a little 8-port Ethernet switch or something or depending on how many devices you've got, you could use something like a Flex Mini if you only need a few of them, and plug them all in, and then you don't have issues with your Wi-Fi, like Wi-Fi outages causing problems with your home automation system because everything is hardwired. And this really comes down to thinking about installing stuff that you want to still be working 10 years from now or 20 years from now. And people often do things like they'll change their ISP. So this is the trap you can fall into. And I've seen this happen. I know a couple of people that this has happened to. They might be with one particular ISP. The ISP has provided an integrated router, firewall, Wi-Fi access point, etc. And then they change to a new ISP, which might be a new technology, like maybe they've gone from coax to fiber to the curb or something like that. New ISP gives them a new router. All of a sudden, all of their IP addresses change. They might end up with a different, can be a really curly one, end up with a different SSID because a lot of consumers are not savvy enough to be able to customize the SSID. And so they'll get, their wireless network will be like Big Pond 12345. And that's just the way it is because that's the way the device came from the factory. So they never change it, they never think to change it. And then they buy a few smart bulbs and they pair them up and they set them to log into Big Pond 123456. And then later on, they change ISPs, change router, and now they've got their Wi-Fi network all of a sudden is D-Link 57, and nothing works. And converting all of those things over to the new Wi-Fi network can be a bit of a pain, because if you no longer have the old Wi-Fi network there, you can't go in and reconfigure them. So what you have to do is like factory reset every single device and then re-adopt it, and it's a pain. But if you have your automation system on a ideally dedicated, like a separate Ethernet network, you can treat that as something that is static and that will not change for years and years, whether you change ISPs or someone else moves into the house. That's a classic one. If you're going to sell a house, you want someone else to be able to move in and start using it exactly as it is. You don't want to have to do a thing where you've got to like transfer your ISP account to them in order to, it just gets complicated. So I suppose my overarching advice in this sort of situation where you're starting a new build is, don't approach it with the mindset of a consumer who is putting in point solutions that will solve immediate problems. You need to think about it from the point of view of what is going to happen in 15 years when I'm not even living in this house anymore and someone else is using this system. And so the fabric of the house, or the infrastructure of the house, not the add-ons, the things like a TV that you buy and you plug in, or a lamp that you stand in the corner of the room and you want that to be part of your automation system. Those are what I call point solutions. It's when you are you're solving a very specific problem, or you are putting in something that is temporary. It's not part of the underlying fabric of the house. So with those sorts of things, using Wi-Fi, no problem. If that's what you want to do, go for it. But for the fabric of the house, and to me that means the things that are still going to be there when you move out, they really need to be put in with the thought process of, this has to work when I'm no longer here and some stranger is trying to use this stuff. And that's really where I think wired networking is really so far ahead of Wi-Fi in that situation. It's just much more future-proof. Yeah, I know people are telling me off because I missed the link. I'm sorry. Yes, it must be so frustrating watching me, because I'll be floundering around, clicking on things, searching for stuff, and everybody will be saying, it's right there on the page, just click that link. Yeah. Yes. So, yeah, and Andrew said, Wi-Fi standards change too. Ethernet just keeps working. My bathroom scale stopped connecting to my main Wi-Fi, so I have an AP just for them. I've got the same problem. It really annoys me. Oh, okay, this is a potential rant to the situation. I don't know if anyone saw the news this week that BMW, as in the car company, have gone to the dark side. I really can't stand this. They are John Deering their products potentially in the future with a subscription-based access to features. And I may be misremembering the story, but from what I understand, and Leon, I'll get back to your point about the scales. Was it Leon who said it? I can't remember. No, Andrew said, yes, scales stopped working. Okay. I had that same experience with, what are they called? It's those pictures still haven't synced. I don't know what's going on with Dropbox on my thing. I'm going to turn off Wi-Fi on my phone, turn it back on, and see if Dropbox will then decide to sync the pictures, because I want to show you the pictures of the workbench, which is still quite incomplete, but it's getting there. Yeah, so people were already, yes, $18 per month for heated seats. Exactly, that was the story that I was getting to. What I'm kind of telling two parallel stories here. Okay, I will stop and I will tell one story. Yes, BMW changing to a subscription model for features in their cars. Now, from their point of view, I kind of understand it. And even from a consumer's point of view, I kind of understand that there are benefits to this approach, but it just grinds me the wrong way. Maybe I will get over this. Maybe this is like an old man shouting at clouds type situation. But the story goes, for those who haven't seen it, that in future, I don't know if they're doing it yet, but in future, you will go to, say, BMW and you buy a car. There are a whole lot of features that the car can have, like navigation assistance, head-up display, heated seats, collision of, no, those things probably aren't optional, like a parking camera. Like, just imagine all of the things that typically, if you're going to buy a car, you have to make a decision at the time you buy the car, do I want those features or not? And you pay for them and they're a one-off payment, and then they are fixed in the car forever. The model that BMW is going to is they put all of those features in the car at the factory. Everything they make will have all of the features, but they won't be enabled. And then if you want to use the heated seats, you want the heated seats feature, you pay a subscription fee and they remote activate the heated seats. And now you can warm up your butt when it's cold in winter. It puts consumers at the mercy of the company that has supplied the thing that they have paid for. I suppose that is the thing that that most gets me. I remember a while ago, must be 10 or 15 years ago, there was some science fiction book I was reading. I can't remember what it was. I think it was, no, the name has escaped me. Anyway, it's far future sort of thing. And on some agrarian planet, there was just sort of like this passing thing where there was someone, basically robot tractors and self-driving cars and all of that sort of thing were just standard everywhere. And the idea of a vehicle that was manual and that was not, by manual I mean you control it yourself, so it's got a steering wheel and you can make it do what you want it to do. That whole concept was just like lost in people's brains. It's like they didn't understand that the thing wouldn't just do what it was meant to do. And at the time, it kind of struck me as weird because the writer was thinking ahead to a time when devices are so automated and centrally controlled. So they were talking about, in this context, in this story, I think they were talking about route and flow software, which was the traffic management system. So when you wanted to go somewhere, you would get in a car, it would take you somewhere, and the path of your journey and the way your car interacts with all the other cars around it, it is part of a big system run by the route and flow software that understands where people are going, where they're going to be at a certain point in future based on, you know, the trajectory of the vehicle or the route they want to take. And so it then adjusts congestion and it moves around obstructions, all of that sort of thing. So the whole system as a whole operates as a unified, integrated system rather than a whole lot of individual cars that just drive wherever the individual drivers want them to go. And in this context, the idea of someone having a car that they would get in and drive and make it go where they wanted it to go was like, it was disruptive to the system because it was outside of the system and couldn't be controlled in the same way. Yeah, so Richard said, so now I can have a side business hacking the activations for customers and getting the activation fee myself. Yeah. Oh, and Dodgy made a good point. Not only are you already paying for it, but you're going to use additional fuel carrying these features around. All right, that there are two ideas in that sentence that Dodgy just made. One is, if you put all the features in the car, then the car ends up being the same physical mass regardless. So they all end up being full weight with everything installed. You can't save weight by not installing some feature. So that is a point. It's probably an exceedingly small point. Things like whether you've got heated seats or not. The weight of a seat that is heated versus one that is not, maybe it varies by, I don't know, 2 kilos, something like that on a close to 2,000 kilo car. So it's not a really big deal, probably, for most options. But the other point, and this is really, I think this is insightful. Dodgy said, not only are you already paying for it. Okay, this is the interesting bit from my point of view. If a car company makes a car that has a whole lot of options and they sell every single car with all of the options installed, it means that they have to pay for putting all of those in. Like the cost of putting them in is included in everybody's car. Now, the economics of this could be really interesting because at first glance, like when you first hear that, you think, oh yeah, it's going to make the cost of all cars go up because it means that they're going to be putting all features in all cars. But that may not actually be the case, because the way the system works in terms of ordering a car and then checking the boxes and saying what features you want to have installed, there is overhead in the process of managing that at installation time. So if you go to a car dealer and you say, I want the option with the heated seats and I want, well, there are certain things like color and that sort of stuff that just, or whether you have a sunroof or not, that's not a feature that can be turned on or off by software. I'm talking about features that can be turned on or off by software now. That's really the thing. So if you say, I want heated seats and a reversing camera, and those are check boxes on the order form when you walk into the car dealer, in order to deliver a car with those features, they then have to loop back into the process and go through the whole thing of, okay, we have this car, we now need to install the heated seats, or we have to produce 2 different SKUs, like stock keeping units. We've got one SKU that has heated seats and one SKU that doesn't have heated seats. And now we need a SKU with heated seats with parking assist and one with heated seats without parking assist. So now we've got 4 SKUs. Or we retrofit it at the dealer, so you place your order and then in the dealer workshop they get the device like the heated seats and they bolt them in. Whatever it is, there is complication and process in managing that order process. So I can, obviously I don't have the numbers, but theoretically I can see that it may actually be cheaper for the car company to make all the cars with all the features and activate them on demand than to make some cars with features and some cars without features, which sounds like it would save them money, but it may actually not. I'm not sure. I don't know how that works. Yeah. Yeah, Chip said, if there are 4 seats, that is nearly 0.5%. Yeah, that's true. Scott says, my car has 8 cup holders and only 2 seats. Sounds perfect. Yeah. From Andrew Cochran said, from a manufacturer point of view, it has huge benefits. 1 seat assembly, 1 head unit. A heating pad may cost $60 when it is not installed in every seat. $20 in every. Dubai not needed, Germany yes. Yeah, so I think Andrew is pointing out something kind of similar to what I was saying I think you were saying the same thing in a slightly different way, but yeah. Now, oh, Aaron, what would be interesting to know is if your heated seats is on a monthly subscription, does that mean if they break at any time, will they be repaired or replaced free of charge? Yeah, like are you renting it, in which case, or leasing it, in which case they have responsibility for repairs? Or are you, yeah, I don't know. There are so many little curly situations that this opens up. Yeah, I don't know. Richard said, not a separate SKU for each config. Each car has a base SKU and the option SKUs. Each car has a bill of materials as goes through the line. Yeah, yeah. I'm sure there are processes to manage this. So at IVT, the guy that we ended up hiring as our he became our general manager and was he was a business development manager before that. His prior job was production manager at it's a truck company. What's it called? For some reason, Iveco. Yeah, I think it was at Iveco. He was a production manager there. So his job was actually dealing with this sort of thing. So people would place an order for a truck. Same sort of deal. You want to buy a truck, and what options do you want on it? And then they would do the fit out depending on the options. Yes. Richard said, I'm sorry, so your monthly payment for airbags didn't go through. Please correct this and we'll reactivate them. Yeah. Yeah. So, and Chris said, the point is actually true. One SKU is easier to manage, but not all regions will need those features. So will the cost change per region? Yes. In some ways, seeing this happen, it's kind of like Tesla has ruined the car industry, because Tesla has come into the car industry with a mentality of a software company and the idea of a subscription-based model, which is much more common in software now than it used to be, and are applying it to physical devices that people buy and take home. And yeah, it's now we're seeing other companies. So I've been mentioning BMW just because they've been in the news. It's been this story that they are bringing out this subscription-based feature control. I'm sure other car companies are going to do the same thing. Right now, BMW are the ones who are copying the bad press. And then once it's died down a little bit, we'll probably have other car companies that will start to do the same thing. Austin said there was a company building airbag vests for motorcycles that had a subscription model. What? Yeah, anything safety-based should not be a subscription model. It should just be, particularly if it's mandated. Like airbags in cars, they are mandated by the safety standards, so there's no way that they should ever be subscription-based. All right. Yeah. Oh, so most of this I've been talking about the benefit from the point of view of the car company or the supplier. I want to get back to this. I want to get back to this. Oops, that. The whole question earlier about home automation recommendations. I've still got it on my screen to remind myself to get back to that topic. I've been thinking about it as a benefit to the car company. They can make all the cars the same, they can ship them, and then customers can turn on features if they want them, and they might want a feature for a while and then turn the feature off again, or it raises issues of when you sell a car as well. The whole thing about the person who previously had the car had the full self-driving package, and now they've sold the car and the new owner has to pay for the package all over again. All complicated. Let's not get into that. But it can potentially have benefits for consumers as well. What it means is that the fear and anxiety of making the decisions and the extra purchase cost at the time of buying the car can be deferred. So those decisions stop being a big stress. If you have in your mind, I can't afford to pay an extra $2,500 for the self-drive package on the car. Or like in the case of Tesla, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm just making that number up. In the case of Tesla, I think they include all of the hardware in all of the cars. They're doing this sort of model. And then if you want the full self-drive, or whatever they call it, the autopilot, which is not actually self-driving, but let's not go there. If you want that feature, then you pay like an extra, say, $2,500, and it gets turned on, and now your car has that feature. But the interesting thing is that it means that you do not have to make that decision at the time of buying the car. You can buy the car with all the base features, nothing extra turned on, because that might be stretching your finances. It might be at the limit of what you can get in terms of a loan or the funds that you can come up with at the time. So you might be able to buy like the base model of the car, and then a year or two down the track, you're in a bit of a different situation. Maybe you've got a new job, you've got through the hurdle of the first car payments, and now you want to add some features to it. And so then you say, okay, I'm going to sign up to the $30 per month self-driving subscription. And now you get that feature, or you pay for it as a lump sum and you get it turned on indefinitely, or whatever it is. So it is not all bad. It's this is why I said that I am probably like one of those old man shouting at clouds situations. My knee-jerk reaction to this is rubbish, but there are probably benefits to all parties as well. Whenever there is a major change like this, when there is a change in the way interactions are done, like business interactions are done, there will be bad aspects to it, and there are potentially also good aspects from both sides. Right. Yes. Oh, and Austin said, the one thing I like with Tesla is OTA updates, so over-the-air updates. Other car manufacturers have been struggling to update their modules to allow it, and this customers still have to bring in the car to update it. Yeah. There's there is a lesson that I've learned a couple of times, or a couple of people have been very, very strong on this specific point. The first was Mark Alexander, who was my partner at Freetronics and then went on to LifeX. So when he went to LifeX in the early days, while he was still sort of slightly involved in Freetronics, one thing he said to me is, and this is in the context of shipping the LifeX light bulbs, the Wi-Fi enabled light bulbs. I can't remember what words he used, but the message was basically, if you are shipping a product with firmware to a consumer, the only feature that you absolutely must have before you ship the hardware to them is flawless over-the-air updates. Because other things you can fix. Like if you've got, you might have an idea that you want to do your light bulb to have scenes. So you want to be able to do timing or sequences or whatever. If you have over-the-air updates, you can add that feature later. But you've got to get the over-the-air updates working first. Don't know if you can hear that. You hear that knocking sound? Lachlan's down the back of the factory. I assume it's Lachlan. I haven't actually seen him. Oh yes, I saw him earlier today. He's down the back of the factory assembling some rack or something. So that's making me want to talk about that, because that's actually a really cool thing. his new favorite thing is industrial pallet racking because it is surprisingly cheap. There is a place just around the corner from here that supplies it, and it's really interesting as a construction material for large scale things. So, you know, like the huge pallet racks that you see in warehouses, one of the end pieces for one of those, secondhand, you get it for like $100. It's amazing how cheap it is and how you can build really big, strong structures with it. Really cool. So he's working on a, I think I can talk about this. He's working on a 6-meter track for an industrial robot. So the robot can move along the track, and it can, he uses it for welding at the moment. So he does automated welding with this robot. And I think it's a 9 degree of freedom robot. I can't remember. And with like a 2-meter reach. Really, really cool thing. So he wants that to be able to run along this 6-meter track and reach a large area and be able to pick things up and weld things and stuff. Yeah. So, sorry, that's a cool future thing that I'll probably get Lachlan on the stream to talk about. We should do a little demo about that at some point. Where was I? I don't know. That's right. I was saying over the one thing, if you ship a product to a customer and you can't over-the-air update to it, you're screwed. At some point there is going to be a security vulnerability that you have to fix, or there's going to be a feature that you want to add. So before you ship hardware to a customer, you must have that over-the-air update capability. Anyway, that was what he said to me. May not have been quite as forceful as that, but that was essentially what he said. And since then, that whole thing has been reinforced by my friend Andy, who many of you would already know. A similar sort of thing. He said to me before, there was a project we were working on. It was a commercial project we worked on together a few months ago, which unfortunately I can't talk about. It's a super cool project, but it's under NDA, so I can't even tell you what the project is or anything. And we had some devices that we'd built that needed to be shipped over to the US for some laboratory testing. And the one thing that he was really, really, he wanted to be absolutely sure of is before we ship these devices over to the person in the US, make sure we have a remote update procedure for them so that we can keep making changes based on the customer requirements. This was a custom device for a client, and like they owned the device, they owned the IP. It was all done for them, so it's not like a consumer situation. But we wanted to be sure that if the client then came back to us and said, "Oh, we want you to make this change, or change this sample rate, or whatever it happened to be," we could say, "No worries, we'll make that change in firmware, do a remote update." So OTA updates are the critical thing. If you send a device to a customer, you have to be able to send updates to that device without getting the device back to you. And if the device is a car and you can't exactly stick it in the mail and send it back, I think it's even more important. Right. Doji said, OTA updates for a car equals another way to hack the car. That is true. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So Scott said, I think this is important, and I'll mention this just before we get back onto the other topic. So Scott said, what about people like me? I pay up front for my cars, no loans, no monthly payments, no longer an option. I think there are ways around that. There could just be a single fee to activate a feature. What they could do, for example, is say, to have this feature, it is $20 a month, or it is $500 to activate it indefinitely, and then it just gets turned on. Maybe something like that. There's also the issue of leasing and warranty and selling cars, like what happens to another person that buys the car if you bought it secondhand. I'm actually in this situation. I am bitten by exactly this. So the car that I bought fairly recently, a couple of months ago, has two software modifications. This is third-party software. One is modifying the shift profile in the gearbox, and the other is a remapping on the engine to give it more performance. So what happened was that the previous owner of the car went out and bought these two pieces of software. And he thought ahead. He was actually quite clever about this. When you buy a piece of software, typically it will say, please register the software and type in your email address, etc. And there you go, you've got it. When he registered this software, he created a Gmail account specifically for the car. And then he registered the software to that Gmail account. So then when I bought the car, the idea is that he gives me access to that Gmail account and I now have the subscription. And so the Gmail account is used to authenticate against the software providers, and the software provider, so I can then log into the software. So what I can do is, with my phone, I've got a USB OTG adapter. I plug this in, plug it into the OBD port on my car, pull up the software on my phone, and I can do things like remap the engine. I can load different maps. I can do custom maps. I can change the way the gearbox operates. For example, you can turn on whether you have forced upshifts when the revs get up high, or whether it will not do forced upshifts and it will just hit the rev limiter. So lots of different things like that, which are all configurable in the software. Now the thing is that if he didn't go to the trouble of registering that software to a generic address and then transfer the email account to me as the buyer of the car would no longer have access to all of those features that he has paid for. So it's probably a very good parallel to this whole conversation that we've been having. In this case, it's third-party software providers. It's not BMW themselves. So the software talks to the BMW gearbox and engine management system so that it can do things like change the mapping. But it could just as easily have been BMW providing that as a service, and something that you pay for extra, and then when you sell the car you want to transfer that feature with it. All right. Scott says, but did you change the password once you had the car? Yeah, that's the thing is, the previous owner could then log in. It's got two-factor authentication turned on for the account. Now, okay, let's get back to this question. This one right here. The question from way back near the start of the stream, which was advice for someone who is doing a new build, or in Leon's case, a retro fit, a retro build. Oh, look at that! There are my hands. Okay, there are a few aspects to this. One is, ooh, my hands are really cold. Stepping back nearly an hour to the question, yes. One is the control of the outputs. Now for me, this question, now that the Shelly Pro 4PM, okay, so just to clarify that, because I hadn't heard back from Altico about whether the 4PM had received its certification or not, I've just regularly been going in and doing a search, and that was actually how I came across, I think I've closed it now, that was how I came across the certificate. I had been searching, so every now and then I go into the list of Australian certified devices and I search for Altaco just to see what's happened. And they've got about half a dozen devices that are listed. And this most recent time I went in and did the search, and I saw 4-channel power switch, and I went, woohoo, it's done. Johnny, 100 secs. Payment for the Superhouse TV live stream subscription. Thank you. Yeah, so the so I saw the Pro, Pro 4PM. I have to think about the name every single time. Shelly Pro 4PM has had its certification, and I hadn't heard anything. It had actually been, when I did the search, it had been approved a couple of weeks before, and I hadn't heard anything from Altaco. So I then emailed my contact, Preslava at Altaco, and said, is this true? Like, I can see that there is a certificate there. And the short answer is, yes, it's true, but there is a process to go through in terms of supplying stock into Australia that has all of the correct labeling on it. So what's happened is they did all of the lab testing, they got the approvals, and they now have the certificate. But in order to be able to sell certified devices into Australia, part of the requirements are that the device has to carry the notification of the certification, it's got to have the reference number, all of that sort of thing on it as stickers, and that just takes time. So what they are doing at the moment is going through the process of setting up all of the necessary labeling to go onto the Shelly Pro 4PM so that they can sell it into Australia 100% certified. Now, for me personally, there is no physical difference in the device. The Pro, so this one that you can see in the picture here, which is the one that's sitting on my workbench in my old lab, that physical device is exactly the same device as what will be sold into Australia as Australian certified. No difference whatsoever. The only difference is the label now that it's done, it's passed its lab testing. So I wouldn't have a problem just ordering the Shelly Pro 4PM now and installing it, because from a safety point of view, it's fine. The certification has been received. If it was ever questioned, like there was some issue about it, I could point to the certification and say, yeah, this is the device. It is from this company. Here is the certificate. And I think it would be pretty safe. It'd be hard to have an insurance company or something and say, you're using an unapproved device because it doesn't have a sticker on it, or it didn't have a label on the box that got thrown in the rubbish. So they, yeah, Tradie Trev says, we need the tick. Yes. Oh, and Scott says, thinking about squirrel, Steve isn't on camera. Steve is right here. Right here. Oops. This little hard hat just came sideways. Yeah, I need to rearrange things a little bit. And speaking of which, has Dropbox finally done its upload? No, it has not. I don't understand what's going on with that. I don't know. Anyway, I will figure that out another time. In fact, what I might do is I've noticed sometimes, because yes, I have dodgy Wi-Fi here. If I have Wi-Fi turned on, Dropbox won't sync. And if I switch to mobile internet, Dropbox might sync. So let's just give that a shot. Yeah. Andrew Cochran said, wait for the insurer not to pay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Andrew says, risky proving it was okay, isn't insurance out? Yes. The thing is that, I don't know if well, maybe the device would have yeah, I think the device has to have a sticker on it, the little tick sticker. So, point being, that was why a big deal hadn't really been made about this yet, but I suspect that Altico will talk about it at the point where they have them available. Now, I'm just going to check on something because there is an Altico event coming up. And I just want to, I was actually thinking of mentioning it on the stream. Here we go. This one, visit event. I'm going to stick this up on the other, oh, it's on Facebook. That's weird. That's a weird link. I'm just going to bring this up on the other screen. Here we go. So, Shelly Summer Product Launch Live Event, Thursday, July 21st, which at 2 a.m. So that's local time for me, which means I'm probably not going to watch this live. It's, I think, a Wednesday evening in Europe, which is, so Altico are based, where are they? Are they in Bulgaria? Somewhere like that? I can't remember what country they're in. Anyway, they are having an event where they talk about new products that they are releasing. I will probably just watch the video afterwards. I'm not going to get up at 2 a.m. specifically to watch the live stream. But if you're interested, check out the Shelly product. Yeah, there we go. 6 p.m. CET, whatever CET is. I don't know. So if you're interested in that, check that out. Bulgaria, yes, thanks Richard. You confirmed. I thought they were in Bulgaria, but I wasn't entirely sure. Scott said, bloody insurance on my boat doesn't cover water damage. Okay, so the point I was getting at here is, if I was in, I can't remember the name of the person who asked this question, so I'm really sorry about that. If I was in the situation now where I was doing a new build and I wanted to set up all the automation properly, like the way I would like to do it, there are, I think there are 3 fundamental components to this. One is the output side of things, and that I would do mostly with Shelly Pro 4PMs. I think this is a really, really good solution. I like these devices a lot. So what I would do is set up something similar to what you see in the switchboard. So there's a DIN rail behind it. There are a couple of Shelly Pro 4PMs. They've got switched outputs going out to different loads. And, you know, the ELCB, all of that sort of thing. So, and here's a more elaborate example. I'm getting a sore throat. I didn't think ahead and have a drink nearby. I really should grab one. Central European time. Central Europe time. Great, thank you. Excuse me. So that's what I would do from the output side. I would wire, so I'm not sure, who are episodes? I'm not sure who it was that asked the question or whether there was, here we go. This episode right here. If you haven't seen this episode, this is one from a few years ago, so September 2017, where I talked about the centralized control. So a switchboard directly controlling all of the loads. And in fact, I am, yeah, distributed switchboards too. Yeah, so in this case, I've got, you can see the red one is the primary switchboard. This is where the power meter is. Power comes in from the street here. And then it's distributed to 2 subboards. So I've got the green subboard over here and the, what is that, cyan subboard over there. And then the loads are wired directly back to the subboards. And then inside the subboard, I have relays on DIN rail mounts, kind of equivalent to this. But I would do it with this if I was doing this again right now. And in fact, I'm probably about to retrofit my switchboards with these. So, that takes care of the side of controlling out to the loads, assuming that you don't care about dimming. The second element is the control system. So the coordinator or the logic, the thing that tells those things to turn on and off. There are many, many options there. The really popular open source one, of course, is Home Assistant. There is OpenHab. You can go simple and use like Node-RED and MQTT. So that's what I've got here at the moment, set up here in the lab. I'm going to experiment with a whole bunch of stuff. That's one of the things that is going to be nice about having this lab environment compared to my house that I live in. It'll mean that I can do things like experiment with different control systems and not annoy other people. I'll only annoy myself. So that's why I have things like this. So this is actually the Node-RED that is controlling this stuff around me right now. This is like the live Node-RED installation. And there is a much, much more complex Node-RED installation controlling my house at the moment. So there is that side of it. I'm not going to go into that in too much. The interesting thing, and this is the tricky thing, is the input side of it, or the switches. And this is where I'm kind of conflicted. Hang on, in fact, I'm going to go for a little walk because I do have a drink just out here, and I'm going to grab one and bring it back to the back to the desk. I don't have a fridge here yet, but I do have some cans sitting out there. Now, of course, this is where the whole OXRS and light switch controller thing comes in. Scott said, time to upgrade to Node-RED 3, tidy that flow up. I was not even aware of that. What am I running here? What version of Node-RED? Node-RED v222, okay. Node-RED 3. I am going to resist chasing that squirrel right at this moment. But, Scott, thanks for pointing out that there is a Node-RED 3. So, the other side of it, the input side. Of course, you can use your phone with whatever your control software is, like a Home Assistant app, but that is not very convenient. You really need physical control surfaces on the walls. And this is where things like the OXRS light switch controller comes in, and I haven't talked about OXRS for ages because I've been distracted by other things, but in the background, Austin and many others have been very, very busy doing cool stuff. So what I would do for my own house is this, the OXRS light switch controller, and put like little illuminated buttons and possibly touch screens like the ones that Austin is working on in different places around the house. And those are the control inputs that go to the control software that then turns loads on and off. But Cable Tie says, oh, that will make Steve sad, not chasing a perfectly good squirrel. So, yeah. What else would you use? This is the thing. One of the reasons that I started doing this light switch system all these years ago is the whole question of, I don't want that, I'm just looking for pictures. Light switches, here we go. The reason that I was doing these all those years ago was that there isn't really an obvious solution to a home automation light switch that does not also switch loads. There are plenty of things like Wi-Fi or smart light switches, and not just Wi-Fi, like Zigbee and Z-Wave and now thread and whatever things where you can take they're designed for retrofitting. So the idea is that you have power going to the switch controls the power to the end device. And in that case, retrofitting with something like the Sonoff T41C touch control is really convenient, because you take off the existing light switch, you put a smart light switch in its place, and now you have both control from an app or an automation system, and you have a control surface on the wall. But what it doesn't... ooh, I just got what is this? Is this someone sending me something? Who was this? I just got a message. Normally I wouldn't... Oh, here we go. Yes, I just got a... ooh, hang on. This is such a weird way of doing this. I'm just going to switch to the front camera and hold up my phone. Oh, it's not going to focus on it properly. So this is a picture of a automation controller, and you can see that there are labels here on an LCD, and whoops, on that side there are physical buttons that you can press to turn things on and off. I hope it was okay showing that. I don't want to reveal anyone's personal stuff, but yeah, so that's an example of yeah. Oh, Tradie Trev says, retrofitting can be time consuming for fault finding. I much prefer all the wirings to the control panel. Okay. Ooh. I'm just quickly scanning back to the through the chat. Okay. Stephen said, almost taxi to airport time. I expect John to promptly finish at exactly 12 so I get to the airport on time. I actually do need to finish on time at 12 today, because I've got to go home and get my daughter and take her to an event. So she's got to get on a train by a certain time, and we've got to have lunch first. So I do need to go at 12. Now... where are we? Just catching up. Okay. Leon said, need is a strong word. My house is full of automation, though I have a remote for some overrides. My goal is hands-off automation, no switches anywhere, just have the house react to the presence of the occupants. Yes, that is the dream. And in fact, I did a talk at LCA about this sort of thing years and years ago. I'm going to see if I can find it, because this is a cool talk. I had a lot of fun doing this talk, and use the force, Linus, was the name of the talk. I'm going to see if I can find it. Here we go. If I click this, it is probably going to start playing, but I will then quickly hit the pause button, and I'm going to full time. No, go back to there. Is it? Yes. All right. This one here. The reason I'm posting this link now is that it comes down to the whole question of the philosophy of having your environment accommodate you without you having to manually control things. And this is something that I've talked about a number of times before, including in this talk, where the goal is that a smart environment should not just be a big remote control toy, which is something that my friend Andy says all the time. He said if all you're doing is putting control on your phone, then all you're doing is making a remote control toy. It's not making an automation system. An automation system, by definition, should receive input and make decisions and adjust things depending on what the desired outcome is. So if your desired outcome is that when you walk into a room, the lights come on, then you need some kind of presence detection, and that presence detection needs to feed into the automation system, which then controls the lights. Sorry, I feel like I need to cough properly, but that would not be fun on the microphone. Right. Sion says, yay, got home in time to watch the end of the stream. My guess is that you've been at your new factory doing some work, and Sion has been very quick getting onto that. The floor painted, at least most of the floor. Starting some construction, really cool stuff. Right, so it has problems though. It is one of those things where conceptually it sounds simple. I suppose a good analogy, if we're going back to the subject we were talking about earlier, was self-driving cars. It's one of those situations where you can solve the 80% reasonably easily, and then you get diminishing returns for your effort as you go into more of the edge cases. So just the example of lighting. There might be times that you don't want lighting. Okay, here's the classic one to think about. Automatic lighting in your lounge room, which is typically where you have your TV and whatever. So so what you do is you have presence detection, which could be, say, motion detection, but there are issues with presence detection. Let's just assume that we have perfect presence detection, whether someone is moving or not. If there is someone in the room, we know about it. If they're not in the room, we know they're not there. So there are no false positives, no false negatives. What we can do is have the logic in our system say, if there is someone in the room, turn the lights on. Okay. If there is no one in the room, turn the lights off. That seems pretty straightforward. And right there, with that very, very simple logic, you have solved the 80% use cases. But, like, whatever the thing is, the 80% use case, it is the scenario 80% of the time. But then you start having exceptions. The obvious exception is you don't want the lights to turn on during the day when there is enough light. So what you then do is you bring in a light sensor, or you have time of day in your logic. So the lights only turn on if it is dark enough to justify it. All right, so now that is a fairly easy step, but now you've just improved the functionality beyond that 80%, and you've taken it to like 90%. That accounts for 90% of your use cases. Now you introduce the, I better respond to this. That was my daughter just checking that I am going to be home in time to take her where she needs to go. So I'm just going to tell her that I will be home in time. So next, you introduce watching TV. When you're watching TV, you don't want the lights on necessarily. So now you introduce some logic where if there is someone in the room and it is dark and the TV is off, then you turn on the lights. But if the TV is on, you turn off the lights. And that's got you to like 97% of your scenarios. But now there are other complications. What happens if, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something. You are watching TV, so your TV is on, you pause it because you want to get up and go into the kitchen and make some popcorn, and the automation system now needs to know not just that the TV is on, it needs to know that it is paused and that you are moving or doing something else. So my point is that the more you start whittling down these very specific scenarios, the more complicated the logic becomes. And achieving 100% where it will always do the right thing every single time. Okay, here's another good one. I'm just thinking to like a crazy extent here. So you're probably thinking, yeah, I could code in these exceptions. And then over time, you just keep adding exceptions and adding combinations of things until you make it behave the way it should behave. Here's one you may not be able to deal with. You are home, or not necessarily you, maybe, like, I'm thinking of a scenario like my mum, for example. She has a fall detection watch on, which sends out an alert if she falls over. And so imagine a person in this situation. They're at home alone, it's night, they are watching TV, so the TV is turned on, it's not paused, and they have some kind of, say they have a cardiac event, and their emergency alert, they hit their emergency alert watch or something, and it calls an ambulance. The ambulance arrives, and they need to assist this person, but the TV is on, and therefore the lights are off, and they can't turn the lights on. How are they going to turn the lights on? How is the system going to account for the fact that it is dark, the TV is on, there is someone in the room, but you want the lights on because you need to be, dealing with a medical situation? So the more you go into these sorts of things, the more you discover that trying to cover every single unforeseen circumstance is really, really hard. And at some level, at some point, you need manual overrides. You need to be able to just walk up to a control on the wall and say, I want that light on, and I don't care what the logic of the home automation system thinks it wants to do. Or I want that light off, and I don't care what the logic thinks it wants to do. So Leon, I totally agree with what you're saying. A properly automated environment should do the right thing in all situations, but we still need to allow for circumstances where we want to manually override what the automation system thinks, and to get it to do what we want it to do, regardless of all of the other rules. All right. Yes. Johnny said, I ordered some Seed MM-Wave sensors today. Awesome. Yeah. And Leon said, Akara make a really good presence device based on MM-Wave. Yeah, millimeter wave. Millimeter wave radar, that is really, really cool. That is something that I am going... It has been on my must-play with list for so long, because presence detection is a really difficult problem in home automation. It's a problem that sounds like it should be easy to solve, and it really isn't. And millimeter wave radar seems like a very good way to do it. Now the really interesting ones are the ones that can detect breathing and heartbeat, because it means that you can be lying perfectly still and the system still knows that there is movement in the sense that there is a body in the space that is doing something, which can also, it also has some really interesting implications from the point of view of well-being checks, like health checks. So once again, I'm thinking about the point of view of someone like my mum, who might end up in a situation where she needs to call for assistance. Imagine, so with something like the millimeter wave radar, some of them will only detect movement. Some of them, the really good ones, will detect heartbeat. And they will, one of the metrics that you get out of the system is sometimes, depending on the back-end processing that they do, because the really simple ones will simply give you like a binary output. It'll be there is motion or there is no motion, which is super useful. That's a good thing. But the really sophisticated ones do processing on the signal they're getting back from the radar, and they will distinguish things like heartbeats, and it will be able to, they can say that is a heartbeat that I'm detecting, and respiration, so they can detect things like breathing rates. So you can have this little device in the corner of the room, and it will be giving a stream of data, which is, this is the current heart rate of the person in the room, this is their rate of respiration, this is like the level of activity, the movement that they are making. And it would be cool to be able to do something like have thresholds where if the heart rate goes above or below certain thresholds, have it send out a please help me sort of alert. Or if the respiration rate goes outside. So if, for example, my mum was sitting in the lounge room and her heart rate shot up and her rate of respiration shot up, then there is some kind of event going on, and maybe someone needs to go and do something about it. So yeah, they're not just for presence detection, but the more advanced millimeter wave radar systems, I think, have lots of interesting implications for that sort of monitoring as well. Andrew says, I can hear Alexa salivating. Yeah. And Chris said also measuring heart rate is very intrusive if you're with a partner. Yeah, there are lots of things about this that are incredibly intrusive. And when I said that word, I read out the comment, Andrew's comment a moment ago about she who shall not be named, the little blue ring started spinning. Yeah, so yes, this is such a complicated area. The trade-offs of monitoring and measuring and recording things in terms of providing capabilities like medical alerts versus that being a potential avenue for abuse. It comes back to that comment earlier. I can't remember who said it. It might have been Dodgy. Someone said over-the-air updates for a car are a potential way for the car to be hacked. Same sort of thing. If you've got a home automation system that is tracking the location of every person in the house, it knows where they are in the house, it knows their heart rate, it knows their rate of respiration, and it knows a whole bunch of other things about them, because it could also be looking at things like activity on their phone that they're carrying, then there is a huge potential for privacy abuses there. So that is definitely something that needs to be considered. Chris said, am I the only person with chat but no video or audio? I don't know. I think it's working okay. Yeah. Yeah, Austin says, I wanted to experiment with having IR brake beams in a door frame. Yeah. Yes. Sorry, I wasn't, I didn't say that in a way that I was intending to sound skeptical. Yeah, IR beams in door frames can have a couple of benefits. One thing you can do is if you have two beams, or if you have one beam with two detectors, like a splitter, you can detect direction of travel. So you can see if someone is walking into a room or out of a room and take action accordingly. So it's actually really useful to have two, not just one, but two beams across the door. Okay, Chris, good. Good that the video is back. Now, it is 11:55 here on the big clock on the wall, and that means that it is getting really close to the time that I actually am going to have to bail, because I've got to get home, quickly get some lunch, and then take my daughter to her thing. It's so windy today. Yesterday when Chris came around, it was blowing a gale. It was so windy. I don't know whether you can hear the wind. The roof is sort of flapping around and creaking, and yeah. Keith's workshop. Turn the heater off. Yes, I will. Actually, that's a good idea. Although I'm going to be back. After I've done all this stuff with my daughter, I am going to be coming back and doing some more setup. So those shelves that are behind me there, those are just sitting there at the moment on the brackets. They're not screwed in, and that's why there's nothing on them. And there's the other shelf that needs to go down below it. I also this morning just blew, I read the word blue and it came out of my mouth. I brought my old, I'm going to bring it over, stick it in front of the camera because it's kind of cool. So this is the old MakerBot Cupcake 3D printer. I grabbed this off the shelf at home today. It's got the control system hanging off the side of it. And look at the tiny little build volume on that microscopic build plate. Could make tiny little things, but very, very cool. And so that is going on a shelf, not because I'm going to use it, but it is going to go on a shelf directly above. So what you can see over my back there, that's one of my 3D printers. So I've got 3 3D printers at the moment. That's one of them. That's a Prusa Mark 3S. And because it sort of sticks out a fair way in front of the shelves, the shelf, you can't quite see it, but just above the top there is a shelf that goes all the way along. And because it's high and it's back behind and above the 3D printer, it is hard to reach, which means it's not practical as a place to store things. So what I'm going to do is put the old MakerBot up on top of that shelf directly above the other 3D printer, just like a just because it's a cool thing. It's I would really like to get that printer going again one day. I've got to find the old firmware to run on the controllers and things. It's so old school, that printer. And yeah, what I did previously in my old lab was it's got RGB LED lighting inside it, and I had that connected and powered up, so the printer would look like it was turned on, but it wasn't actually in a running state. So I'm going to put it back up there. Cable Tie said yes, a museum. That is kind of like it. And Chip said epitaph of yesteryear. Yeah. Richard, thank you. A Superhouse TV support subscription fee. My car told me to update my subscription. Thanks. Oh, I will have to go in a moment, but I just saw Aaron made a comment, OXRS IoT access point next stream, question. Yes. In fact, where is it? My, it is currently, I think, on an aeroplane. Sorry, I'm quickly looking at my email to find it. Order shipped. No, not that one. Where did the notification go? I'm sure I got a shipping notification on it. DHL. No. Sion, and just dropped thousands of Bunnings. I have got a pile of Bunnings receipts like this. Yes. You need to get a reserved parking space, Sion, at your local Bunnings store, because you'll be there a lot. Setting up a lab like this, unfortunately, does cost a lot in lots of little unexpected things, and it adds up really quickly. Anyway, what was I talking about? Aaron, yes. The PCBs for the new access point are on their way. Fabrication is finished. I could probably track them, but they'll be turning up sometime in the next few days, which means that next live stream, I would really like to have an actual access point prototype that I can show you. That would be really, really cool. All right, now I am going to have to run because of stuff, but I hope you all have a fantastic week, and I will see you all. I I will see you later. And in the meantime, you can check out Sion's new factory setup on his channel. So, okay, that's it. Bye.